Frank Figliuzzi is former assistant director of the FBI for Counterintelligence, author of several books, including his last, Long Haul, Hunting the Highway Serial Killer. Frank, it's great to see you again.
Hey, thanks for having me. No matter where you're filling in or doing your own show, I'm happy to follow you around. I just hope you're not some kind of wanted fugitive on the run, Scott.
Well, not as far as you know. Actually, you probably do know. You could run my FBI file. I'm sure it would be interesting.
No comment.
This weekend, several Iranian nationals were arrested around the country, including one that's reportedly an Iranian sniper with ties to the Iran Revolutionary Guard, arrested in Madison County in Mississippi. How are these Iranians, potential terrorists, getting into the country, these illegals with red flags, getting into the U.S. and then living here for like 8 years without detection or any sort of consequence?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I'm going to say that this problem is not separate from the problem of millions of people entering the United States without documentation. So there's nothing particularly special necessarily about how these folks got in here. But the concern is that there might be people who are either recruitable once they've gotten here, or much worse, were inserted in here with the intention of doing something bad. And I am going to separate this kind of, I don't want to call it a roundup, but rather a focus on Iranian and the threat from Iran from the concerns about the larger issues of what ICE is doing around the country. Now you say, Frank, wait a minute. I am concerned about what ICE is doing and how they're doing it, and the masks and taking grandma and my favorite waiter at my restaurant. But I'm here to say, look, the Iranian threat is real. It's real. And if we need to focus on people who could be called to action, then we should be doing it. So I understand the Iranian threat, and it is significant.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the redeployment of assets in the FBI to be able to investigate these illegals that are in the country. But when there are so many that have come in and so many that got away that we don't even know about, what kind of, without revealing secrets, of course, resources does the FBI have to be able to vet these individuals or to find these people who are in the country illegally or otherwise that may have ties or may be recruitable by Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, Al-Qaeda, all of these terrorist organizations that want to do harm to the U.S.?
Yeah, you've rattled them off, and we've got to talk about Iran's IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. You referenced them. They definitely have the ability to hurt us. Hezbollah, although it's been degraded by Israel over in Lebanon, they absolutely have the ability to have operatives put them here or against Western interests. Otherwise, we've long been very bad about knowing who is here and even vetting people who are trying to legitimately come in through asylum and refugee applications. We've got to get much better. But I have to tell you, if you're going to do a records check on and go pick up the phone and call the Iranian National Police and say, hey, can you just, is this guy okay? You're banging your head against the wall. That's not going to happen. Back when I was in the Bureau, we were very concerned about the Iranian student population being recruited and used not only to steal intellectual property from research projects at the colleges they were at, but also to potentially go operational, go kinetic, so to speak. And the concern that I don't think is being talked about enough with regard to Iran is the cyber threat. Scott, they are quite capable and have frequently waved hello in our command and control systems, whether it's water supply. They're attributed with taking down the command and control of a dam in upstate New York a few years ago. With regard to an actual physical threat, just a couple of years ago, they tried to kill a woman who is an outspoken activist against the plight of women in Iran. She lives in the New York City area, and they literally recruited a bunch of thugs to try and take her out. And only because the FBI thwarted that is she still alive today. Don't forget, Iran wants to kill President Trump and everyone around him who had a part in in killing General Soleimani, who was a revered military leader. And what did Trump do recently when he took office again? He took the Secret Service protection away from those targets, John Bolton, Mike Pompeo, for example. So the threat is real. We've got to take it seriously.
Frank, the former or the current Assistant Director for Counterterrorism, Don Holstead, has reassigned a lot of agents from the FBI following the attack on Iran's nuclear sites. Does this mean perhaps that the FBI may have been caught flat-footed by this escalation? Do you think we're exposed now?
So we have good news and we have bad news. Good news, finally, the FBI has said, okay, maybe it wasn't the greatest idea to take our best agents on the joint terrorism task forces around the country and get them up at 5 a.m. in the morning to go support ICE rounding up unlawful migrants. Maybe we took our eyes off the terrorism ball. And that's what I had been hearing, by the way, when these agents are coming from JTTS. They are busy with migrants. They're not necessarily addressing their caseload. So thank goodness, according to reporting this week, even from NBC News, they're back at work addressing their terror caseload. The problem is they're playing catch up, Scott. They've been off this. They've had their eyes off the ball for months, but I'll go even further back. The FBI is very thinly resourced and has been for years. And they've moved and reprioritized Hezbollah, Hamas to more, screaming issues. And the problem is, have we lost our source base, informant base? Do we have the ability to know who's who in our field office territories? That's my concern.
Frank, you and I don't see eye to eye on everything politically, but I've got a fondness for the Bureau. I've gone through the FBI Citizens Academy. I've spent a week at Quantico going through the Citizens Academy there. And I've met so many of these agents and people who run the Bureau that are doing a tough job. Is this criticism that we're seeing, much of it politically motivated, of the FBI fair, in your opinion?
Well, look, you can't win since Jim Comey, who was fired by President Trump as director, infamously held the press conference and said no reasonable prosecutor would prosecute Hillary Clinton. Then he reopened the case, and half the population says maybe the FBI is politicized, and the other half says, I'm sure it's politicized. And I have to ask people to please separate the leadership and the politics in Washington from the work that the men and women in your local field office are doing to keep your community safe. That's the only thing I can tell people is please don't get wrapped up in this. I just hope that the leadership on the 7th floor right now of the Hoover Building in D.C. is up to the task, because the threat we're facing domestically and internationally is among the highest threats I've seen in the last 30 years.
I wish we had more time, Frank. I know your last book has been out for a while, but I want to tell everybody listening on SuperTalk Mississippi about Long Haul, which is a fascinating look at what's actually happening on our interstate highway system, and it's alarming.
Yeah, it's Long Haul, Hunting the Highway Serial Killers. It's a true crime story about a real-life FBI initiative, which is the Highway Serial Killings Initiative. 850 women have been murdered in the past few decades along our nation's highways, and the FBI says it's being done by long-haul truckers. I rode over 2,000 miles in a big rig with a long hauler to study 3 subcultures: what it's like to be a long haul trucker, what it's like to be a sex trafficked victim, and I talked to those victims who survived being trafficked to truckers, and what it's like to be a crime analyst trying to connect the dots to stop the next killing.
They're able to cross jurisdictions. That makes it harder to track. The statistics are there, though. I mean, we're seeing this happen on the sex trafficking side, drug trafficking, human trafficking, and the killings that are happening across the country as well.
Yeah, if you think, look, I don't have this problem in my little town. I don't have sex trafficking. I may not even have a truck stop here. I don't know what you're talking about. Then this book is for you. It's quite real. And if you say, look, no one in my family, my circle of associates would ever fall into the trap of being sex trafficked, my eyes were opened, Scott. It's happening online, the recruitment and grooming process. and it's young ladies in particular being targeted by someone on the periphery of their own network.
Long haul hunting the highway serial killer, Frank Figliuzzi, frankfigliuzzi.com. It's great to see you again.
Anytime. I'm happy to come on with you, Scott.
SuperTalk Mississippi continues its mornings with Richard Cross.